from him, and the way they do it is they try to break him, and this guy puts him through all kinds of torture and pain, and he's got 4 lights above him, and he keeps trying to convince Picard there are 5 lights there.
Oh.
And Picard, and so every time he's asking, how many lights there are. 4 lights, and he goes, no, there are 5, and he hits him with some kind of pain. It's basically all this torture.
Basically, to get him to get him to admit to something that is obviously false.
Right. To get him so they know they've broken him, and
okay,
it was a tactic just to try to get him to break him. And
so suddenly seeing all those with the Trump memes now makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
But that's what that's from. It's a really good episode because it.
Oh, it sounds good. Yeah, I don't want to go through the entire series. I've seen maybe 2 seasons. Out of the whole run, I've seen maybe about 50 episodes out of the 200 or so that they did.
Yeah. So, but that's what that's from is. So, the more you know. Okay, and we are live, by the way. So.
Oh. All right. So yeah, it was all about Star Trek, which is why you tune in.
All about Star Trek.
Cut that out.
No one all my Trekkies. And here we are on another Sci-Fi January episode of The Spoiler Room, the last one of the month because it's the last week of the month. And as you may have guessed, we had this trend of we're covering sci-fi films that take place in 2017, and tonight's is no different. And to talk to me about Cherry 2000 is a group of great Spoiler Room crew members. First off, the diva of the Spoiler Room is back. So glad to have her in the room tonight to talk about this one. It is Dawn. Hello, Dawn.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hope you are doing well. Thank you for joining us. And next to Dawn, the BFD himself, the one and only Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
And next to Glenn, we have Scotty D in his house tonight. Hello, Scotty D.
Hi. I needed something to add to my whiskey tonight, so I decided that I needed to go get a Pepsi.
Have a little Pepsi with your whiskey is always good.
A Pepsi.
Yes.
Pepsi.
A Pepsi. Did you send your love bot to go get the Pepsi, or did you have to go get it yourself?
I have no love bot.
You
know what? Some of us can't go across the wasteland to get a love bot either. Some of us just have to sit in our homes and be miserable.
Yeah, the wasteland's tough this time of year. So, yes, Don.
So Scott, you said you watched it with the commentary. Mm-hmm. I was looking on Wiki, and apparently the bots are called gynoids.
They don't say that in the movie. I don't know. They didn't say that on the thing, but okay.
Yeah, apparently they refer to them multiple times in Wiki.
For a human-like robot.
What is?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was kind of creepy.
That is kind of creepy. Well, there's lots of. Well, I mean, we can get into that in the show, but there's lots of symbolism. Of if you look at the art direction in this movie, there's lots in the art direction itself. There's lots of erotic and feminine symbolism. Think Georgia O'Keeffe type feminine symbolism. In the art direction here, you'll see hotel things where you're like, well, that lampshade is awfully vaginal. Yeah, stuff like that. Lots of little touches like that they acknowledge. Yeah, that was a conscious thing.
Or the door to the Glue Club.
Exactly. Yeah.
We'll get into that just a little bit. For those of you who don't know about Cherry 2000, yes, it is the third of the sci-fi films we're covering this month, set in the future of 2017. In this story, though, a rich man travels to the ends of the earth to find that perfect woman, and he finds that she's under his nose. When a successful businessman, Sam Treadwell, finds that his animatronic wife, Cherry Model 2000, has shorted out, he hires sexy renegade Trekkie E. Johnson. I'm reading off of IMDb. Just wanted to defend myself now. to find her exact duplicate. But as their journey to replace his perfect mate leads them into the treacherous and lawless region of the Zone, Treadwell learns the hard way that the perfect woman is made not of computer chips and diodes, but of real flesh and blood. Yeah.
That's a great way to stretch out the tagline to 2 paragraphs there, IMDb writer.
Yeah, it's not even by anyone involved with it. It's just someone who decided, oh yeah, we'll just write this. So Cherry 2000, yes, a man basically journeys across the wasteland of 2017 to find his love bot. And this film is actually completely different from the other 2 films in a way that we covered that were set in 2017, down to its opening, which is like this James Bond sensual opening thing. Dawn, this film starts up. What's going on? What's running through your head when you first see this film?
Well, because at first you don't, until you're kind of getting into it, you don't know that it's a love bot. You're thinking, oh, hey, so sexy trophy wife is sitting at home making herself lovely for her man after his hard day of work.
Yeah.
And then there's some weird wordplay that I didn't quite I got lost on.
It felt almost like it was routine, and I think it was meant to feel like it was supposed to be programmed. I'm not sure. I believe that's what they were going for. Maybe. I'm not sure, but it was odd. It was some odd dialogue. It was overly scripted. It was just like, wow, is this it was almost like a daily routine, because he brought her flowers and she tosses old flowers out of the vase and puts new flowers in.
Yeah.
Vase.
And when he, not to jump ahead too much, but when he goes back and listens, it's always the same dialogue over and over again. Like that's the only dialogue they ever had.
Yeah, so you get the impression when he comes home that this is the normal programmed routine for his Cherry 2000. Glenn, what about you? Did you feel like this was a regular programmed routine that he had for his perfect woman?
Pretty much. It's kind of how it came across. I mean, she, supposed to have a personality, as it were, but yeah, I still think there's not a lot of variance in her program.
She had a rather creepy and unnerving personality. Actually, I was waiting for her to go psycho, because no one should be that jolly for hubby coming home. Scott, what about you? This opening where we're introduced to Cherry. Oh. We're introduced to Cherry 2000 and the dialogue and such, and his little routine. Did you get that was supposed to be programmed?
You don't get it at first. It seems kind of like the old nuclear family, even though it's just couple.
Right.
Because there is a routine going on. It's a very obvious routine, and there's this whole motif in the film where it's very 80s, of course, lots of really outlandish, garish fashions and stuff, but there's also a regressive feel kind of towards 50s, and there was a lot of 50s nostalgia going on in the 80s too, at the time. So there's all this regressive feel towards the 50s, not just because of the nostalgia, but also because society is recycling a lot of the old ideas, old themes, and kind of putting into this consumerist thing. And so knowing what little we know, we're like, okay, this is kind of a bizarre world where we got 80s ideals, 50s values, and yet a little bit of future play. So we don't really know what's going on until like the soap suds start really making their appearance. And that's when we find out, the truth about Cherry.
Yes, the truth about Cherry. Oh man, man, it's just an odd opening. This film is completely odd altogether, but yeah, especially this opening. It's just. I know you're not supposed to know, but even when you first watch it, I think you kind of suspect something's up with her because she doesn't. I don't think we see her drink or actually eat, do we? She actually puts the drinks to the side, doesn't she?
I think she just puts them up to her lip. And I don't remember seeing her drink. And later on, when she holds the sandwich, she kind of just admires the sandwich instead of eating it.
Right.
So I don't. I think you're right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's little hints. I think that something odd is with her, and so then yeah, when we get the water and she shorts out, he takes her to the garage to get fixed.
They almost died during making that scene.
Which scene?
The scene where they're making out in the soap suds. She shorts out. They almost died. I was listening to. I watched this movie twice. Once with just standard, and once with a commentary track where the director's describing it. He says, "Yeah, the special effects people. I'm rusty on science. Okay, so you got.
Sure.
So if anybody has a better head for it, be my guest to interject. But they used carbon dioxide to make the bubbles.
Oh.
And the two actors are right down there. David Andrews and Pamela Gidley are right down there on the ground. And the director is there right there with the camera, and they're feeling lightheaded and stuff, and they're noticing that there's something going on. They're getting carbon dioxide poisoning. They're getting too much carbon dioxide, and finally the director, realizing there's something going on, says cut, and he passes out. And by that time, I guess Pamela Gidley had already been passed out for a couple seconds, and when they cleared everything, she actually had little marks on her and stuff because so they were so close. There was such an abundance of carbon dioxide because, guys, this is like a whole room full of carbon dioxide of bubbles that they made with carbon dioxide in an enclosed space. Sets are hot. I don't know what could have been factors in this. Just the closeness of it, and they almost got carbon dioxide poisoning, and they almost died making that scene.
That's crazy. Well, there were a lot of bubbles in that scene.
It was a lot of bubbles. It was like Lawrence Welk's wet dream. It was a lot of bubbles.
Tiny bubbles, only a little of them. Carbon dioxide poisoning. Yeah, so we get her. She short circuits in that, and they take her to the garage to get fixed. And I mean, first off, our Sam Treadwell guy, played by David Andrews, this guy, I don't know about him. He runs a recycling plant because recycling's huge now. It was odd with this one, with the opening. Not only do we start off kind of odd with this, we're just introduced to this couple basically, and things go awry and she short circuit, but in the other two films set in 2017, we got a little exposition that set up the world. And Glenn, here we got no world set up, did we?
No.
I mean, what kind of... Do you get any impression at all that this is even supposed to be a post-apocalyptic world at first? I mean, I know it's, resources are strapped, but do you get any impression until he finally heads out to the zone? What'd you think of this world building they did, especially compared to the other two?
There isn't any. I mean, for the most part. I mean, I guess it's just that you've got the. I don't know. They kind of hint that something has changed because of the fact, the whole. They don't make them what's her face anymore, like the Cherry 2000. It's like a lost art, stuff like that. So there's obviously been something that has set something back a bit.
Right. The technology was there, but something
Yeah, and now
happened.
something has happened that, also this technology is not as readily available as it once was.
Right.
But it's like, they still have, their little, the big city still has its comforts and all that stuff.
Well, kind of comforts, though. They made dating a little more complicated, didn't they, Dawn?
Oh my God. As far as the world goes, that kind of beginning scene, I got the feeling that there was this postmodern 1950s, when you see the old cartoons, the world of the future, that's the kind of imagery that was there. And then you get into the Glue Club.
Yes,
And you get the impression that the entire society, based on the interactions of Treadwell with his coworkers, and then what happens with his social interactions at this Glue Club, you get the impression that the entire world revolves around sex.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you definitely get that impression, but more so they not only sex, but it's rather male-dominated society. Kind of, or no, would you say?
To a point,
Mhm.
it definitely seems that the world caters to male fantasies, especially because of when you factor in the sex bots.
Right.
But as far as the interactions in the club goes, it definitely seems like the women are not victims.
No.
No.
No. We have lawyers, folks. They see what his coworkers are heroes. Sam, his coworkers decide to take him out because he's sad because his perfect woman short-circuited. And
I get $1 for.
Man, for every time that happened, I tell you. So they take him to this Glue Club, which we mentioned. The entrance looks like a vagina, which, Scott, it makes sense now that you mentioned that with the was that from the behind the scene the commentary you said, Scott?
Well, they just keep pointing it out, and the moderator keeps pointing it out. The moderator who on this commentary, who happened to be from Film Freak Central, I didn't feel bad about that, considering that my whole big thing where my podcasting empire started with Film Geek Central.
Yes.
Listen to us instead. Anyway, but the moderator kept pointing it out. He says, "Okay, you don't have to point out every time." The director said, "But yes, you're right." Okay. But you know what? This is you were talking about the world there.
Yeah.
Again, this was made. It was released here in the United States in 1988.
Mm-hmm.
It was filmed in 1985. This was, and I gotta thank you guys for this one. When I heard you guys were doing Cherry 2000, I was like, oh, cool. I haven't seen that movie since I was like 13 years old. And at 13, I could not grasp like what this film was talking about. I just thought, well, that's a freaking weird movie. Okay. This is a really brilliant satire on the 80s. This is really good. And look at what they've done. There has been, what's going on in the world? What was going on in the 80s? Japan was really taking over as far as technology and everything. And a lot of the American jobs started going overseas. And Reaganomics, this great experiment, worked for a small number of people, and the rest of the people it kind of left behind. There's been an industrial collapse.
Mm-hmm.
We don't make anything anymore. That's why they have all these signs that say recycle, 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 because the only way they can actually keep things working is to take old things and repurpose them. And then you get to the Glue Glue Club, and what was big? What's a big holdover from the 70s and into the 80s? Oh, the singles bar scene. All these people who are just trying to hook up and trying to have sex because there's all these fucking yuppies who used to be hippies, and then they sold out and realized, oh my God, I've totally sold out all my ideas. Well, I can still have sex. And so and so you have all these yuppies and everything. And what does sex become? What does hookups become? They all become legal transactions, and the whole society becomes a consumerist thing. If you look, everybody in this movie, especially in the city, is operating on the assumption of what they can get from anybody else. And if humans can't do the job, well, we'll give you sex bots.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, it was really an interesting way to do it. And then you have this over materialistic thing like the 80s. You have this loss of industrialization like the 80s, and then you have this sex obsessed thing like the 80s. I don't know. I'm guessing it was just because they were going for a PG-13 rating that they didn't decide to make a big parody of all the coke that was running through the 80s as well. But I mean, no, seriously, because that's something that also, if you think of 80s stereotypes, especially in more high society situations, that's an 80s stereotype as well. There's really a lot of stuff going on here, and it was done in a way that was kind of different. It was kind of different than most science fiction films were doing it. I apparently Harlan Ellison is a huge fan of this movie. so when he likes a movie and he doesn't accuse you of ripping him off, that says something. So they were doing something a lot different in this science fiction film about the what if society, positing what life would be like in the future.
Wow. See, you got a lot more out of it than I did. No, I didn't think well, because I think it was because my approach to this film, I was expecting something, yeah, sure, campy, but not necessarily so extremely satire, at all. I mean, I was expecting more along the lines of, say, your adventures in the Forbidden Zone and that type of sci-fi versus a complete comedy sci-fi, which I know the comedy I'm sure is there, but I'm not sure it was all executed well.
The director has hot and cold feelings about this. He didn't like it for years because it wasn't his script, and then apparently this comes right from him again. I'm sorry, I don't want to keep on bringing up the damn commentary.
No, it's okay.
It's a broken record thing. I'm sorry about that, but it's
okay.
But he had hot and cold feelings for years, and then he kind of got to like it because it wasn't his script. He was trying. This director has one feature film other than this to his credit, which is Miracle Mile.
Right.
I haven't seen that movie. Everybody I know who has seen it raves about it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good. So.
And he did this movie when Miracle Mile fell through, because Miracle Mile was supposed to happen with Nicolas Cage, and it wound up happening with Anthony Edwards. And he did this movie, and he says it actually prevented Miracle Mile from being made for a couple years. So he had some rough feelings about this movie initially, and it wasn't his script, but he looks back on it now, he says, no, some things didn't work, some things did. It was a neat script. I tried to have something. The original director was supposed to be, it was in development for a while with lots of different people, lots of different stars, Jodie Foster, Ellen Barkin. But eventually, the director was supposed to be Irvin Kershner.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and then instead it went to this quirky guy. So I can only imagine. I think that with somebody like Kershner, it would have been a lot more straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And with somebody as quirky as the guy who did Miracle Mile and these little quirky student films and TV projects, it became this really bizarre and, you know what, if you ask me, wonderful film.
Well, I'm not saying it was bad or anything. I'm just saying the satire in that you're mentioning. I mean, some of it is obvious, but some of it I don't think it's the way it's presented, you get the feel at first like this is kind of supposed to be a somewhat serious film, almost along the lines of Logan's Run, because it's almost in that quality and that design. So now that you mention it, I'm picking it out. But especially in this club, we are sitting in 2017, and we do still have the singles clubs today. And Dawn, we have a girl who meets up with our hero, and she pulls out her card and shows her last conquest. Hello, are they foretelling social media there?
I think maybe. I think maybe. I mean, it was already a thought at that time. Mm-hmm. So, and people do like to brag about their conquests, so it would make sense.
Because I looked at that going, holy crap. Okay, I'm sitting there watching this going, okay, the car, yes, we actually kind of have cars like that now. But everything else was a little over. I'm like, okay, no, not really 2017. And then she comes out and she goes, oh, yeah, hey, how you doing? And then she shows this picture on a monitor screen. She has to scan her card, but it's pretty much a picture of her with some guy.
Actually, I'd go even farther, not just social media, online dating.
Yeah, I'm thinking Tinder. I didn't think of it until you brought up that question. I'm thinking like Tinder.
Yeah.
Wow, you're right. And then you got the lawyer part in there as well. Glenn, you think this is foreshadowing that they were kind of foreshadowing the Tinder and what we have today? Did that scene feel a little bit like what we have today in a different form? But
kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm. I almost thought that the first thing that popped in my head was when that one girl walks up and just shows here's a video of me with some dude I screwed last week. I'm like, so the future is kind of like chat roulette?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, complete with the legal agreement that you have, where we get a cameo in here of Mr. Larry Fishburne. I couldn't believe I texted Dawn when I was watching this, and I'm like, holy crap, Larry Fishburne did this for a brief stint, but playing the lawyer that's negotiating the contract between one of the co-workers of our hero and a potential mate for the evening, which was an interesting conversation in itself, I must say. And of course, Sam is still pining for his girl.
I just realized that in that scene, he's wearing the sunglasses that are
Matrix.
reflecting his computer screen. Hey, Matrix.
Oh, those were. Wow. Okay.
What if I told you?
Instead of having sex,
oh my God,
the blue pill, or you
imagine what you could learn in the Matrix.
Wow. Oh. Man, now that you mentioned it, yeah, I thought those glasses looked familiar, and now
awesome.
Yep, there you go. Now you know what he was doing before he was fighting the Matrix. He was a lawyer negotiating sex contracts.
They never let me join in, so I took the blue pill. Screw this.
We do get kind of a creepy thing, though, with him and his perfect girl, because so she's not functioning. But Glenn, where does our hero keep his perfect girl as he tries to figure out how to get her fixed or replaced? Where's he got her basically dead body? You remember?
Bed?
It is bed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like she's going to rot.
This is true. And everything that was her is on a little disc that he carries around on a little pocket recorder or tape player or disc player if you want. Mini discs. So see, they foretold mini discs.
I saw that.
So there's another thing it was prophetic about. Todd sighs. But he learns that the only model that is like his Cherry 2000 is out in the zone, which
One thing that I wanted to that I noticed quickly,
go ahead.
when he was at the repair shop and the repair guy was trying to talk him into a different model, did anybody else notice Gort in the background?
Oh, and Robbie the robot.
Standing next to each other.
Bobby.
Yeah. We had Robbie the robot and Gort in there. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah, when his girlfriend breaks down, we basically have Scotty. We have the Mall of Women. His tour of the women that are available. Man, that scene was just a little creepy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why am I the one you go to for this question?
Because
What the hell, man?
okay, we can go to Dawn.
I liked seeing Gort and Robbie together. Okay.
I was just going to say, Scott,
Yeah.
you're the one who lives in Florida. You're the guy we go to for freaky and weird.
Okay, I can see that. It's my backyard. I get that. Okay, fair thing. But yes, definitely creepy, and I'm creeped out as I am about the weird sex trafficking nature of Florida.
So that picking out the girl model was a metaphor for Florida. Okay.
Yes, it's another world in the South that you just don't want to deal with. Trust me.
Dawn, you agree that was creepy as well, and just that.
Oh,
man,
absolutely. And it definitely solidifies that the writer of this story was strongly emphasizing the male fantasy going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the search for the ideal woman.
And see, that's where I was thinking of. I'm glad Scott mentioned that from the commentary, because that's what I was thinking of when I saw. It's supposed to be satire in that, but then you get the way those scenes are handled or written, and we get those kind of peppered throughout that I didn't quite find the humor in it. I found it just bizarrely, unnerving.
I think it comes. I'm going to hold off on it, but I think that the humor in it comes later when you see the alternative to the mechanical robotic nature. I think that's where the humor comes in.
Okay. All right. Well, that's true. Yeah, it could come in later. I guess for me, just that, when you mentioned it, I'm like, there are a lot of scenes in here where I'm just like, this isn't. Yeah.
This whole beginning part does not endear you very much to Treadwell.
No, it doesn't. You don't really feel for this guy at all. I mean, plus the rest of the world they live in, and I know they're going for a stark contrast suddenly to the Zone, which is basically the Wild West.
And in watching this, because I watched it a couple times over the last few days taking notes, I even tried to consciously make the effort of, we have the movies where we're trying to buy into robots and artificial intelligence, but they're not even trying for that.
No.
I mean, they're not exhibiting any. He talks about personality, but there's no personality there.
Question. If you don't mind,
Go ahead.
I'm posing this to Dawn, and I'm posing this to Glenn, and I'm posing this to everybody. Do you think? Because remember when this was made? It was made in the 1980s, and I'm not using it to excuse the behavior or anything like that. But do you think we are more conscious of the creepy, pervy nature of this behavior now in the internet, social media age than we would have been, say, like back then, where you'd meet a guy, and it'd be about like the 7th or 8th date till you find out, whoa, what is he into? That's something that happened, and now you can look up, you can see somebody's whole profile, as we were talking about before with the Tinder and stuff like that, or just internet dating or whatever. You can, even if you're doing that, you can just do some research and sign out. Well, let's find out if this guy's on Facebook and what he posts and what's his Twitter thing like. And do you think we're more conscious of that? It's not like creepy guys haven't existed forever.
Right.
And it's not like creepy guys aren't like the Sam Treadwell character where they seem just a little bit out of time, a little bit out of sorts, and you don't know, well, maybe they're just different, and you don't find out till later that they're creepy. But do you think we're a little bit more conscious of it now than we would have been, say, in 1988 or in 85 when this was filmed?
I'm not sure on that. Glenn, what do you think? It creeps us out a little more because we're more aware of that now, and we're older and wiser, or do you think even in the 80s, older at least, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I think it's just creepy in general.
Even for the 80s. How about you, Don?
I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember what I thought of this movie back then, when I saw it back, when it came out, and I'm pretty sure that I remember that whole beginning part being really creepy. To an extent, yeah, more so. But I think it was creepy for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah. I think it was creepy because the thought of robots and AI was a lot more fantastical, and people would look at it and be like, blow up dolls.
Yeah.
and that's a different kind of creep factor than
right
having a relationship with an actual AI.
Well,
I thought it was creepy too back then, and now and stuff like that. I just wanted to know from other people, like, if it was, we seem to be more conscious of that behavior, because
as far as kink goes,
it's all out there now.
Kink, yeah, it's all out there, and it's always been all out there, and like minds will find each other.
Yeah, they will, and here in 1985, they do predict the robot love bot, which we kind of do have nowadays, at least the realistic looking ones, and some of them apparently in Japan do have movable parts. So, but this film suddenly takes like a 180-degree turn, and we get this awkward thing where they're trying to set up, Sam and his love for his perfect woman who's a robot, a love doll, and he goes out to the zone, which is basically the Old West. I mean,
the Old West 50s, 1950s style.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking 80s.
I was thinking more like the Bro West.
The Bro West. Well, yeah, because he's looking for a tracker, because a tracker can take him into the zone for them to find where they store the Cherry 2000, which is an older model, and which way later we come to find out, it's in the Sahara Casino for whatever reason. I don't even get.
They all had hotels, didn't they?
Yeah, well, that's true. But so he finds her, and he comes across our tracker, Melanie Griffith, E. Johnson, who he expects first when he heard his name is supposed to be a male, and it is a female. It is Melanie Griffith. And Glenn, what did you think of the casting of Melanie Griffith as a tough tracker of the West?
Well, I mean, she has one thing in common with a tough person from the 80s, that being Arnold Schwarzenegger, in that she cannot act. Oh my God, is she awful.
Oh.
She really is not a good actress.
Well, especially in this one, it's just it almost like she's just going through the paces in this. Don, what'd you think of Melanie Griffith's E. Johnson?
Where I agree with Glenn, I actually think that her lack of ability works in this one, because she's supposed to be, through dialogue, you kind of catch that she's supposed to be socially inept and not really good at interacting with people because she was raised in the zone by Uncle John.
Yes, by Uncle John, six figures.
Six-finger Jack.
Jake.
Jake,
yes, played by Ben Johnson. And yeah, you do get that she is kind of socially awkward. Maybe not. She's not as educated as Sam Treadwell is. She's educated by the School of Hard Knocks. It took me a while to warm up to the idea of her being the tough person. I mean, I think like the last, later as it goes on, she seems to get more comfortable in the role. And I don't know how they filmed this, but she seemed, at least either the way it was written or directed, she seems to get better with it. Scott, how do you feel about E. Johnson? And would you say she actually, you buy into her toughness as the movie goes on versus when we're first introduced to her?
Yes, I'm of two minds of this subject. I will respectfully disagree with Glenn for a moment, and I will actually totally agree with Dawn's assessment here, is that it does seem to work for her. Because here's the thing, look through Melanie Griffith's filmography. Can you find another part that is remotely like the part she plays in Cherry 2000? No. You didn't even have to think.
No.
There was no edit there, folks. He didn't even have to check. But no, it's there's nothing like it. And apparently she has said, of the movies she's made, this is her least favorite. Though she doesn't like trash it, she acknowledges, no, there's fans and such, so it's cool that they like it. But I didn't have it. She seems to acknowledge. Yeah, she's miscast. She's miscast. I mean, it's different than any other part she's played. She's not a bad actress. She's a great actress. In fact, if you watch, Mark and I, we talked about John Wayne when we talked about The Shootist, and we talked about how he was a good actor, but there was a difference between being a good actor and having range. So, like when John Wayne got cast as Genghis Khan, exactly. Exactly. It's hilarious. But if you look at John Wayne in The Shootist, or The Searchers, or The Sands of Iwo Jima, it's great. Melanie Griffith in Cherry 2000, it's goofy.
Yeah.
But if you look at her in, say, Working Girl or Something Wild, which is an amazing movie, or Stormy Monday, or Night Moves, or Body Double, those are all great performances. Here she's a bit miscast, and I would agree with Dawn. You see her right away, and you're like, ooh, this was just not the part for her.
Yeah.
It seems really strange. She's really off kilter. But as it moves on, as you were saying, Mark, I almost got to thinking like, wow, it's kind of working and it shouldn't. It's working for reasons that and it's working in a way that it shouldn't, because she is miscast. But that's the thing, is that you don't expect her to be as tough as she is. And she is. Right from the beginning, she's got a good head on her shoulders. She's got survival skills. She's got it all. And if we could talk about the dichotomy between her and the main character played by David Andrews in a bit,
sure,
that would be awesome. The Sam Treadwell character. You want to do it now?
Yeah, we can. We can talk about the difference between them, because that's really obvious. What is
awesome about this is that right as soon as she enters, and he says, "Oh, you're a girl. I misjudged this. I'm sorry." And he goes off on this thing, and what happens? He almost gets mugged. And
by Byron James.
by Brian James, yeah, the late great Brian James, who's great, fantastic. Love seeing him in a bit part, or any part really. But then she comes back. From that moment on, he stops being the hero of the story. And everything shifts, and this was an intentional thing, because E. Johnson, is the character Melanie Griffith plays. E. Johnson is the more masculine of the two.
Yeah.
She's constantly showing the Sam Treadwell character up. Even though Sam Treadwell is this person who apparently was fought in the war and whatever, he's such a creepy, weirdly milquetoasty kind of guy. She's constantly...
I totally missed that. I totally missed that.
Yeah,
I was looking for it. Where does it ever indicate he fought in a war?
He mentions one line.
They mentioned like one or two lines. I fought in the border wars. We don't know what the hell the border wars were, but it gives him an excuse so that when he like picks up a machine gun, he doesn't it doesn't like recoil his hand and fly in his face. Basically he can shoot and stuff. But it's like even though he was a soldier and stuff, so she's constantly showing him up, and eventually, throughout the film, there's this arc. And it becomes this thing where E. Johnson's the character. He's the guy who's like falling 2 steps behind, but eventually towards the end he catches up, and it's this thing that allows the Sam Treadwell character to regain his own humanity, his sense of assertiveness, and a sense of masculinity, which includes him becoming a feminist. Because he doesn't want the pre-programmed things. He wants the unpredictable. He wants somebody who can think for himself. He wants somebody who can show him up when he's being an ass, as he has been for the first 45 minutes of the film. When I saw this last night, I'm like, holy cow! It's a much more progressive character arc than especially regarding gender issues, than I would have expected from a film of this era.
Yeah, well, it does change the minute she pulls out the car, and her car and that is bigger than him.
Again, there's lots of imagery.
And they run the barricade and everything, and he's afraid of the barricade. You're right. He does kind of change. They do change the kind of the roles of it here of what we would normally see in a movie like this, in the action movie, and that she's the one with the balls, and he's the one like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. But I guess it got me though at first because of the way they introduce it, because he's perving on her when he's in her office, for crying out loud. I'm like, do we need the shot of the silhouette of her taking her shirt off and I'm like, yeah, come on, guys. But but besides him perving on her, yeah, I guess they do kind of switch, and he does take the submissive role in a sense.
And you do kind of need that to emphasize the fact that for him, in his mind and in his experience, even though he once was a soldier, in his mind right now, women are his sex bot.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about service to him. So how can she benefit him? Her only benefit before he knows anything about her is her body and how it may be appealing to him.
Yes, it may be, but he's still got his at this point in the movie, when they're just running the barricades and first getting into the zone, he's still got his love on for his bot, to the point where he's playing the love making on his little tape recorder while he's having lunch. Glenn, is that what you do on lunch too? Is you play the love dialogue that you have during lunch just so you can listen to it?
No, man, that's creepy.
It was, isn't it?
That's creepy. I just sexed.
But I mean, even we get into an hour into this film, just as he's getting into the zone, and we get to meet the outlaws out there. For me, Sam is still creepy, and I'm not behind him. Are you at all, Glenn? Is this guy right now? Even that first date is. Are we connected at all? Do we want to see him accomplish his goal at all at this point?
Not really. No. No, not at all. I mean, he's just kind of I don't know.
He is. He's. I found it odd that this is the guy we're introduced, and he's the one that's moving, helping move along their mission. And up until like an hour of this film, I'm like, I don't care. I want this guy to, I want him to get stopped. I don't want him ever to get to the warehouse of sex bots. And I don't know if that's what we're supposed to feel with him. Like Scott said, the roles do change, and he's no longer quite the hero once we meet Melanie Griffith's character. And actually, he's further removed from the equation when we finally meet Six-Fingered Jake after they do the harrowing stunt, which actually is a very impressive stunt for a film of this nature, of
Oh wow!
a stunt person standing on a car on a hook, which didn't look like they really had any wires at all.
There was some of it was a stunt person,
Mhm.
and named Tracy Keene,
Mhm.
and and some of it was actually Melanie Griffith.
Was it really?
Some of it, not
Some of it,
and no one can tell which is which. They just know that, okay, when the car is actually over the water, that is definitely Tracy Keene. But everything else, they're like, some of this is Melanie Griffith. She got up on the hood of the car. Apparently, right out of frame, they had like a ledge where if she fell, she would have just injured herself instead of like falling to her death. But no, some of that was an amazing sequence.
The sequence with the crane and lifting the car up in the air and them shooting guys, though I loved how she kept pulling out the bigger gun. Dawn, did you get where she pretty much takes out a small mountain? What'd you think of this with the crane and her?
I noticed that. That was actually in my notes, that as she's pulling out this big cannon, shoulder cannon, and you've got like 12 guys holding bazookas, and they're shooting at each other, and all the people and all the 5 guys with the bazookas can hit is this, like you said, this small mountain that's underneath her.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, that was just crazy. And
then she levels the mountain with her weapon.
Yeah.
I'm like sitting there going, "Oh my god!" I'm like, those are some hell of the weapons there. Well, he's got his little gun that he's shooting guys with, but
pew pew pew
pew pew pew as she's launching, and there's no symbolism here at all with guys and huge RPGs and shooting at her. And well, it does hit the car occasionally because it is an armored car apparently, because there are some sparks in that. But so I had to mention that sequence. But with Sam Treadwell, he almost gets further removed as far as being the man or whatever when we get hook up with Six-Fingered Jake, because now he's not even just the only guy in her life. He's pretty much a tag along at this point, even though the mission is supposed to be for his sex bot. Scott, wouldn't you say that he's further reduced a bit once we get Six-Fingered Jake in the equation?
He is not as so much as like a potential romantic lead, because Six-Fingered Jake is more of a parental figure, or the uncle figure. We eventually find out through dialogue. But Ben Johnson, who does a great job here, excellent actor. He kind of embodies like what would happen if like this person did not get wussified by a culture of convenience.
Right.
About like what if you really did have to survive all this thing, and you get that it wasn't such an easy ride. I mean, the Six-Fingered Jake character, when we meet him, the belief is that he's dead, and that was the only way he could retire.
Right. Was
to let people know he was dead. Well, that doesn't happen unless it's been a pretty hard life, and so but he's learned to survive. He's learned to live on the land. And is there a more contented character in this movie than this guy?
He's happy with his life.
He is. He's not perfect with it. I mean, he has this wonderful bit later on in the film, and almost immediately, guys. The show is called The Spoiler Room once again. So, if you don't want to know, like, just...
you talking about the dialogue later on by the Oasis?
The dialogue by the Oasis. There's this wonderful monologue, which is kind of a bit reminiscent from a scene Johnson had in The Last Picture Show.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that when I first saw it, and then when I was listening later on, they said, "Oh yeah, totally, that was what it was supposed to be." He's like, "Okay, good to know." But yeah, he's and he's talking about how he has looked at life, and he says some days I think I've got it all figured out, and other days I have no idea.
Mhm.
And he talks about like what his view is of mortality. This guy's not gonna make it.
Well, no, when he starts,
Like
he starts waxing.
I think right from the beginning when you meet him, like, ooh, he ain't gonna make it to end credits. But he starts doing this thing, and he's got this philosophy. He doesn't have all the answers, but
Mhm.
is there a more contented, knowledgeable character in this entire film? Because everybody is misguided in some way,
Right.
except for him. He's the only one who has the answers, and part of those answers are I don't have the answers. It's a wonderful character, and so he does. Yeah, I'm sorry to go back to your original question. Is that Sam is a bit removed,
Mm-hmm.
but like not in the sense of like a romantic lead, but as far as like a male lead, as far as this is the awareness
Right.
that you could have, but that you have kind of sheltered yourself from. You've lived your life too sheltered. You've lived your life having everything you want with you, and you still don't feel complete. You still, like a robot breaks down, and you don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like all brings it full circle of like, this is what you need to know. This is the humanity. This is what being a person is.
Well, he doesn't even really hit that point yet, because we have Melanie Griffith when they sleep overnight, which I thought was just an odd scene I had in the notes. She decides to sleep naked. Okay.
She's kind of open with her body, though. I think like the whole thing, even back at when they first meet, I don't think it was like a seduction thing or anything.
No,
I think
no.
she just, it's a matter of fact thing out there.
Right.
I think that she's also the kind of character where if anybody tried something that she wasn't welcoming, they'd get a bullet, between the legs, So
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think it. So I think she's just like that's just like part of like who she is as a person.
And our Sam Treadwell, he's still not the man yet, because he's still hanging on to the girl, because he still has the recording. So much so he puts it in the donkey. Okay, not like that. He puts it on a bag on the side of a donkey for safekeeping. That's when we're finally introduced to Tim Thomerson's Lester.
I love Tim Thomerson.
Glenn, I want to
He's
go
fantastic.
I want to go to you first. What'd you think of our happy villain, Lester?
He made the movie for me, seriously. I will watch movies just because Tim Thomerson is in it. I love his sense of humor. I love his comedic style. He's got this kind of, especially in this one, this kind of, and he does this often. It's that kind of over-the-top hippie, violent hippie, love child, back to nature kind of thing that's not quite believable, but entertaining as all hell.
Yes. He is definitely entertaining, I thought. So, Glenn, how about you with the Lester character? How'd you feel about this villain compared to, the characters we've met up until now, the happy villain?
No, everyone else is, nothing. This is what I was waiting for. I was waiting for Tim Thomerson. That's all you need in a B movie is Tim Thomerson. You don't need anything else. You really don't. If you have him, you're set.
Well, because he makes the most of this role, this where he has his sky ranch and all his lovely ladies, and he's kind of the ruler of the zone, if you will, the bad guy, but he kills people with a smile on his face, which I thought was an interesting villain. I'm like, this guy I like. Tim Thomerson's charismatic anyway, but yeah, he's all you need. I think he's probably the best character, in all honesty, in this film. The way they wrote him in such a way he's performed. Scott, what about you with Lester?
What Glenn said, I mean, and Dawn said, I love Tim Thomerson. You know, I loved him ever since I saw him in Metal Storm. I love him in, of course, the Transfer movies. Love him in seeing him in any of these movies. This is that period that was kind of in between the Charles Band features. You know, there was like a 5-year gap in between when he did, say, like Trancers and Trancers 2 and then Dollman and all that other stuff. And he'd show up in movies like this, The Harvest, and he's so good in this movie. And what's really interesting about this part more than his other thing is that he's so good at playing like the hard-boiled, you know, anti-hero type thing. Well, here not only is he cast as a villain, which is against type, you got to remember Tim Thomerson also got his start in stand-up comedy. He's
right.
He wasn't supposed to be a hard-boiled guy. He was a comedic guy, and here you see kind of this mixture of the hard-boiledness, him playing against type as a villain, and this comedic bit because what kind of name for a villain is Lester? Well, it's a pretty good name if you are a self-help guru who has started a cult in the desert, which is what Lester is. He's kind of like this mixture of Tony Robbins and Jubal Harshaw from the Robert Heinlein novels, and a bit of
Charles
also
Manson.
A little bit of Charles Manson. Yes, exactly. I mean, this is great. I mean, you got this guy, so he's got all this wicked streak. And he's always got a smile on his face. And he's always energetic. And he's always peppy. But he's psychotic. And if you look at it, he is just as bent as the Sam Treadwell character. Because what does he want? He wants the exact same thing. He's been tracking Sam ever since Sam checked into the hotel. Because his henchman, Robert Zadar, overhears him say, "You got any cherries?" at the Hodge thing. He's like, "Oh, why would he want one of them?" And this guy's looking for a Cherry 2000. Robert Zadar, of course, in this one, the only part you're ever going to look at him and not be immediately drawn to his facial features because the outfit he's wearing is just wow. I was just like, what the hell, Rob?
I had that in the notes. The first time we see him, he's more in the background, and he's got a tool belt and like cut off baby shorts or something.
It was amazing. It's the only time because Robert Zadar had this very unique face, you know, thanks to this like I guess it was like a disease or some kind of defect or something that he had. Yeah. And so he had this very notable face, you know, and it's the only film I've seen him in, and I've seen like dozens where like. It took me a second to realize it was Robert Zadar. Usually you'd know right away. Why? Fashion sense. Holy cow. But, you know, going back to, Tim Thomerson, he's like this psychotic guy, and he's just like really peppy and everything. But he's got this new age self-help guru thing mixed with like this psychosis. I mean, if you're taking the movie completely seriously, I think that all goes into the crapper the moment you see all the bad guys start doing the hokey pokey.
Yes. Well, yeah, because Sam gets kidnapped. And not only is he introduced to Lester in the Sky Ranch, but out of the blue, suddenly we get, oh, hey, it's his ex-girlfriend who's now with Lester, who's now going by the name of Ginger.
Same girl from the opening scene with the demo reel.
Yeah, with the demo reel.
Which is a plot hole, but anyway.
It is a bit. You're just like, okay.
Yeah, it's a big plot hole.
Wow, you made it out in the wasteland. And she was a cool character. She was an interesting character, though, because, you know, I like how she played. She was actually playing Lester a bit. You know, here Lester thinks he's the whole leader, and she's just playing the game for survival, and she's comfortable at the Sky Ranch, apparently. I just thought it was kind of out of the blue that suddenly, you know, out of all the wastelands in all the world, she had to be at this one.
You know, I kind of, especially towards the end of the film, I got more the impression that as we watch Ginger and Lester's relationship, I was getting more of a sense of questioning who actually was in charge there, Ginger or Lester.
That's what I'm saying. It makes you wonder if she's actually pulling the strings a bit while she was there, or working her way to being the puppet master of Lester, if you will. Yeah, because she kind of directs it, because she keeps him happy, and by keeping him happy, I think she is playing him a bit. That's a good point. Glenn, what about you? You think Ginger is actually running the show by using Lester as her puppet?
I don't know if she's so much running the show, but I mean, I think she can do what she wants. And she can manipulate Lester a bit, but I don't think she's that interested in it. She just, is just being her, which is a little flaky.
Well, then no sandwiches for Lester.
Yes, no sandwiches for Lester. But yeah, she's just enjoying the new her.
Kind of reinventing herself by going out and hanging with this crazy cult guy who's also looking for the cherry bot. And yeah, so not only is Robert Zadar in here, but we also have an appearance of Harry Carey in here at the Oasis with his, the Last Chance brothel and gas station.
One thing I wanted to mention before we moved on.
Sure.
Did you guys catch with Lester's obsession for the Cherry 2000, or with his interest in the Cherry 2000, he does this toss-off line where he talks about, Sam has always been talking about the Cherry 2000 as having personality and being tender and having a relationship. And Lester says something about her being an octopus.
Yeah.
It's ravenous in the sack.
What, Glenn?
Yeah, it's like smack you. She'll smack you like an octopus, or like being smacked by an octopus.
Yeah, he's more on the whole physical thing, and Sam's more on the emotion side of it. And he has the coveted disc that apparently are rare that'll actually activate her, which is partly why Lester's trying to warm up to him to see if he has the disc. Though he does escape, and they head to the Oasis, like I said, where Harry Carey stars as what's his name?
Slappy.
Snappy, that's what it is. Snappy Tom, who runs the brothel and Last Dash.
I'm naming my first kid Slappy. So.
Slappy. The Last Chance brothel and gas station. Because it's the wasteland with his one woman who I guess would be the brothel part of the gas station. And of course things go... Huh? Wink, wink,
don't judge so quickly.
Sorry, you're right. He could be the brothel part. That's true. You're right. It is the wasteland.
They do call him Snappy.
They do call him Snappy.
Or Slappy.
But our guy escapes, or he starts to escape the Sky Ranch, and our trackers, Melanie and Six Finger Guy, had him. And just before he gets to the Oasis, though, I gotta say, Don, Sam Treadwell, we're looking at played by Mr. One David Andrews, and he is confronted by one Mr. Robert Zadar. And how do they try to sell this as a legitimate fight?
Oh, they're not.
I mean, oh my God, he takes him out, and I'm like,
No,
really?
It's all that military training he had, even though he had no clue about geography or where the borders were.
Right.
All that military training he had, flying a tiny little single-engine plane, apparently.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
he's got
he
that.
doesn't. Okay.
He knocks him out.
No, he doesn't.
How
He
does
doesn't knock him out. No, he punches him, and he thinks, "Hey, I did it," And then he finds out that no, what really got him was that Melanie Griffith came up behind him and stabbed him in the back.
Oh, see, I never got that.
Look at that! Yeah, look at it again. It was another one of those emasculating moments for Sam Treadwell.
But it wasn't that obvious because when I watched it, he hits him, gut punches him, hits him in the head, and he falls down. And Melanie doesn't appear right away. So looking at it, it looked like he knocked him out. And then all of a sudden
it does, and later on, then she shows up and takes the knife out of his back. You realize, she thought she threw a knife in his back.
I didn't notice the knife being pulled out of his back, and maybe that was either off screen or maybe it was the version, the way it was. The version I have was cut. Maybe.
Well, they made it look. They made it look. They really covered it up until you see her show up, and she's like fiddling with the body. And what she's doing is she's taking out a knife.
Oh, see,
because it's PG-13.
Right. See, I never got that. Am I missing that? Dawn, did you get the impression out Robert Zadar?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Scott's right.
Wow,
I'm pretty sure Scott's right.
I don't know how I missed it because I know it was a surprise that she suddenly
I was
showed
mocking
up,
the military training because I missed that part.
Ah.
I missed the whole 2 lines.
Yes.
So that's why I was mocking the military training.
Yeah, well, the character deserves to be mocked anyway. So we have the Oasis, and we finally fly, and we go to Vegas, which when I saw Vegas, I'm going to say right now, and I know I think you've all seen the movies I'm going to reference, but when I saw the plane land in Vegas, I suddenly wanted a Cherry 2000, Damnation Alley, Resident Evil Extinction crossover.
Yes!
Because I'm like, what is it about Vegas getting buried in sand during the apocalypse?
Outrunning crows and killer cockroaches.
Oh, no.
The minute I saw that scene, Glenn, the minute you see this, what is it with Vegas getting buried in sand? I mean, here we have Vegas once again during the apocalypse. Apparently, when people don't live in Vegas, it gets buried. I mean,
yes. Oh yeah, that's what half the population of Vegas does. They're always on shoveling duty all the time. They just have to constantly be shoveling that city out from the sand.
I was fully expecting, George Papard to come around the corner in the track, the 6-wheeler or whatever, and you have me and I just pictured this whole amalgamation scene because the Vegas looked exactly the same in those 3 movies, just up to its armpits in sand. And I'm
the thing I always love about every time you see post-apocalyptic Vegas, it's not only buried in sand. If you've ever seen shots, like actual shots from like outside the city, there's a huge mountain that should be visible.
What? I'm sorry, Glenn?
I said there's a huge. You can see the mountains from Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can really see them. But there's never mountains. Anytime you see a post-apocalyptic Vegas, in the distance there are never mountains. It's always just sand, which means I guess once the apocalypse happens, the Rocky Mountains are just turned into sand, which is why it's constantly buried.
Well, that would make sense because if you've ever seen the desert around Vegas, there's it's not sand.
No,
it's plants.
It's plants.
It's a living desert.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Don, why would the bots be stored in a casino? Would they be in there because of the love? Because they cracked
Sin City, baby.
Sin City.
It's Sin City.
So these bots were probably stored there for the casino people before whatever apocalypse happened, which they never really explain what happened.
No.
Not really radiation because we don't have any mutants.
No.
Which is a little disappointing. I was hoping for some music.
Apparently, the ozone layer is burned off because Ginger was wearing that Uber suit, which she took off and never put back on.
Right. I don't know why she showed up in like this beekeeper outfit.
Because they had beehives.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yes, that's right. She did have. Right. They did have. See, but I didn't see that was a beekeeper outfit. I thought that was like a
nuclear
radiation kind of trying to protect from the
It was the
UV rays.
It was the futuristic 2017 beekeeper outfit.
That makes much more sense than what I thought.
Yeah, because there were bees, because that was used in their escape. So
yes, which for some reason he felt, it's like, I got to blow up their cars. Oh yeah, and take out their beehives. I got to do that.
Because he just knew that Lester would be by at that time to get stung by the bees. He had that type of training from the military and the border wars.
Strategy.
Amazing what one little line of dialogue can do.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. But yes, we're getting in late here, and we're finding more things to talk about than I thought we would with this film. But we'll wrap up here. We're getting to the final climactic battle, and he finally gets his bot. He puts the disc in her. She wakes up. He's kind of grown attached to his tracker, Melanie Griffith, but he doesn't quite want to admit to it because otherwise it would have made their whole travel be worthless. So then he gets what he wants, and she basically, the tracker sacrifices herself because there's too much weight in the plane, and he comes around and he sees the light, and he leaves the perfect woman for the imperfect woman. Dawn, what?
I get that. I mean, that was where it was going. We all knew that. What I'm laughing about is at that end scene when they're flying off into whatever, and he turns around and kisses her when he's supposed to be flying.
Yeah.
I made the comment during that scene. I said, wow, he's brave because he's already proven that he can't drive when he ran into the side of a mountain staring at Melanie Griffith sleep in her car.
Yes. Yeah.
So driving, looking at kissing Melanie Griffith while he's flying, they're just going to fly into the side of a mountain.
Well, no, there were no mountains. We've established the mountains were gone, so he was okay. There was nothing there.
Fair enough. The mountains were what turned to sand to cover Vegas. That's right.
Yes, remember? And he took out Lester, too, because Lester gets the bright idea that he can stop a plane with lassoing the wheel.
Yes, Death by Dancing Girl.
Death Girl, where he runs into the Dancing Girl stage. Scott, what'd you think of this final sequence here? I mean, we knew where it was headed, but suddenly it gets into the full-on action. It's like what you were kind of waiting for, I think, for the whole film, wasn't it?
What do you want to know about? Do you want to know about the last action scene? Do you want to know about how Lester gets taken out, or what?
How'd you feel just how it played out? Was it how you expected?
No, and I loved it because, and this comment was made again with a thing, but I mean, like, I love that, for instance, when they revived Cherry and she's like this program thing, she's acting like this, and she's so goofy. And when I was watching this, like, yeah, she's so goofy. And again, I hate bringing this, but when I listened to this commentary, they brought up something interesting, and I'm like, holy shit! And I had to go back and watch it without that sequence, without any commentary, just to see if I saw it. And I did. It says, if you really look at it, the Cherry character is only acting as women are encouraged to act in the action sequences of virtually any movie. No matter how they have behaved earlier on, even if this was an established character who had, like, some independence, once the guy is there, they're encouraged to kind of like take this subservient, oblivious role, which is what Cherry does, but Sam Treadwell's there. But even better, E. Johnson is there, who is, as we've established, like way more than both of them, put together. I loved that bit. I thought that was brilliant. Like, holy cow, they're absolutely right. I didn't even catch that before. And I love the way that Tim Thomerson goes out, because it's like the only way he could go out. He goes out. He goes out killed by his own obsession. He goes out killed by the giant plastic woman. And the Sam character, who has, of course, said, like, you know what? I don't need the plastic woman. I want the real woman. I want the one who's going to challenge me. he's the one who gets up and gets to fly into the sunset, and and not only he gets to fly into the sunset, they get to fly into the sunset together. It's this weird kind of juxtaposition where it's actually kind of saying something and tilting classic Hollywood motifs on its head, and yet it feels like the classic romantic thing. I mean, you half expect that instead of credits rolling up, you expect it to say "The End, Made in Hollywood, USA" or something. You expect it to be this very traditional thing. You got the Basil Palladouris score that's just like fantastic traditional, going up and really swelling at the end. And you expect that to be the thing. So it's this weird juxtaposition of two worlds. I thought that it ended on a perfect note, because in ways it was ended the only way it could have, and in other ways it completely surprised me.
And I'm not sure if irony is the right word, but I'm going to use it anyway. The ironic thing is that had Lester not done that last hurrah and gotten himself killed, he would have ended up with Cherry.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
I thought that's where it was going.
Yeah, I thought so too. That's where it was headed. Glenn, how'd you feel about this final sequence? Did it play out like you thought it would? And was it satisfying for the ending? How'd you feel about this kind of end sequence and how things played out?
It went about as I expected. Although I love the fact that it's Lester shot how many times?
Like 3 or 4 at least, and
all like body wounds, like chest and stomach, and then falls back through that window, which he then climbs out of. And then what kills him? Oh yeah, he just gets smacked into a. that kills him.
That's the final straw.
Yeah, it must have pushed the bullets in further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love Glenn. He always finds that way to hit the nail on the head.
Yes. Although we get at the very end the idea that Ginger may take over the cult, because she's sitting there with
what's left of it.
What's left of it? He pretty much killed everybody, but she gets the cherry.
Yeah,
she gets the cherry.
She gets the cherry, which I actually liked that ending. I thought that was kind of a cute ending. In all honesty, was giving Cherry the sandwich, and she's just like, "Huh, okay, well.
Pretty."
So I think we're going to wrap it up here for the evening. Folks, Cherry 2000 is definitely different than the other 2 films I think we watched that take place in 2017 in many different ways. But there were little similarities to where we're at now, but definitely a lot of differences. But this is a unique film, to say the least, and hope we wet your whistle for that. So let's go down the line and just get your final thought with Cherry 2000. And like we did with the others, would you recommend it to a sci-fi fan today? Glenn, we're going to start with you first. Just your final thought with this film, how you felt overall, and then would you recommend it?
If you're a fan of B-movie post-apocalyptic stuff, yeah, check it out. If for nothing else, for Tim Thomerson's Lester. Otherwise, I mean, I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's got its moments, which makes it fun for someone like me who likes this, type of film. But I think for your general audience, it's gonna be like, really? That's what? I mean, no. But I'm assuming if someone's listening to this show, then yes, you are cut. You have the same, cut of the same jib or whatever of us. So go for it, and enjoy the parts that are enjoyable, and just shrug off the rest, because it was made in the 80s.
And see who you can recognize that shows up in this film. Dawn, how about you? Your final thoughts with Cherry 2000? Would you recommend it?
To fans of the post-apocalypse genre, I would. Probably even to fans of cheesy 80s B grades. just because that's a thing too. I enjoyed it back when I first saw it. I found it entertaining again with this revisit for different reasons, but I still found it entertaining. So yeah,
Cool.
I would recommend it.
And Scotty D?
Well, I've already said it already, but, just to reiterate, I thank Dawn for suggesting we do this episode because it allowed me to revisit this film that I didn't think much of when I was like 13 years old or whatever. And now looking at this movie, I loved this movie. This is amazing. So, yeah, I think this is a really great movie. It's whatever you are expecting, it's not that. It's got kind of that same quirky edge to certain films of the 80s, like say like 80s and early 90s, like say like if you ever saw like Highway to Hell, I'd say that it has like kind of the same sense of humor about that. But it is a film that combines some of the things that were going on in the 80s with a really interesting way of satirizing the world as it was back then, and kind of providing a really interesting character arc for a lot of the people. I really got a lot out of Cherry 2000, so I would recommend it, which is not to promise that you're going to like it. But I would. It's not for everybody, but I would definitely suggest everybody check it out. Definitely.
And I would say it is for select tastes. Yeah, cheesy, post-apocalyptic film fans. If you're, as mentioned before, if you're listening to this, you at least have some interest in it. Check it out. We didn't cover everything because we want to leave at least a little bit for you to be surprised about. But yeah, I would recommend it. Modern sci-fi fans, it all depends if they're looking for the nostalgia part. If they're like the little 80s cheesy stuff, you'll see a lot of things in here. There is a lot of satire. If you're from the 80s, you'll probably appreciate it more because of the references and such. But it is highly different from The Fortress and The Running Man. Let's put it that way, in both tone and presentation, I think. So there you have it, folks. Our thoughts on Cherry 2000. We hope you enjoyed this discussion. And then real quick here, we're going to have everybody pimp themselves. So, Dawn, why don't you go first and let us know where they can find you at.
You can find me at intheaudience.net.
Fantastic. And Glenn?
You can find me at YouTube, Guy in a Bunker Productions, guyinabunker.com, or follow me on Twitter at Guy in a Bunker.
Fantastic. And Scotty D?
You can catch me at movieocrity.com, and holy cow, I actually have new content there. After 8 months of promising, I do have it, and more is on its way. Movieocrity.com. You can also catch my web series, Movieocrity, at vimeo.com/channels/Movieocrity.
Fantastic. And you find links to all these fine folks, as well as archive to the Spoiler Room podcast and my other things that I do at specialmarkproductions.com, as well as on We Live Entertainment. I actually wrote some words about some films there that showed at Sundance. So if you're at all curious about that stuff, you can check it out there, but definitely check out the works of these fine folks who have sat down tonight and talked Cherry 2000 with me. Hope you enjoyed this journey, and now say goodnight, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
everyone.